homes, and hopefully, inshallah, more indulge in your studies as well. Today, the topic we are going to discuss is very important, and that is miscarriages. Uh, but before just going onto the miscarriages, I would like to revise with you different terminologies which we have discussed also earlier in your studies about the terminologies we used for the duration of gestation in pregnancy. Because when you are aware and you are confident, you have learned them well about the different durations of gestation and how the terminology is used with those durations of gestation. You will be again have a clear idea in your mind about miscarriages also. When we say the word miscarriage, I think what comes in your mind is something like loss of pregnancy, isn't it? So we have to define about the duration at which that loss occurs, and then it will be labeled as miscarriage. So let's see. During the period of ninth month of gestation, or you can say 38 weeks of gestation, what we define is and what we label is that a pregnancy, what is a full term pregnancy? A pregnancy from 37 weeks till 40 weeks of gestation. A pregnancy from 37 weeks to 40 weeks of gestation is known as a term pregnancy. Why 37 weeks? Because the maximum maturity the fetus has attained. Now from 37 weeks, it's time, anytime the labor can initiate and the fetus is ready to be delivered. Then it is known as a term pregnancy. Now, the next term is the post-term pregnancy. Obviously, post-date or post-term pregnancy would be beyond 40 weeks, isn't it? That's it. Now we come to the word preterm. If we come in the descending or the downward, then we come to the word preterm. Then preterm would be definitely a gestation before 37 weeks. So it's the limit is 37 weeks. But what is the other part of the scenario? What is the next end of the scenario? One end is the 37 weeks. Any pregnancy before 37 weeks is preterm. So the other demarcation would be 24 weeks. So any pregnancy which ends up from 24 weeks to 37 weeks of gestation is known as a preterm delivery. Don't forget, from 24 weeks till 37 weeks. And now, then coming backward behind further, any pregnancy ending before 24 weeks would be labeled as miscarriage. Hope now you have a clear idea. So, any pregnancy ending up before 24 weeks of gestation would be miscarriage. And why so? Now, let's see. So, miscarriage is a pregnancy that ends spontaneously before the fetus has reached a viable gestational age. And what is the viable gestational age? That is 24 weeks. Because we assume, now, what is the meaning of a viable gestation age? I don't know the meaning of viable. It means we assume that if a fetus is delivered beyond 24 weeks of gestation, beyond the age of viability. So 24 weeks is a cut-off value for us. It is a cut-off demarcation for us that if a fetus is delivered beyond or at 24 weeks of gestation, we assume that the fetus can survive outside the maternal womb. So therefore 24 weeks is labeled as the age of viability. Now don't forget, what is the age of viability? 24 weeks. And why it is called viable? It means the fetus is able to survive. But let's make it clear also as well that in a good setup, in a good neonatal intensive care facility setup, where we can give a good facility, then we are hopeful that this fetus will survive. Otherwise, even a 34, 35-week fetus has difficulty to survive when it is delivered preterm. Okay. Now, so a miscarriage is a pregnancy that ends spontaneously before 24 weeks gestation. This is the definition of miscarriage. Any pregnancy ending before 24 weeks of gestation, before age of viability, and therefore definitely this fetus is not able to survive. So other terminology we should about which we should be aware is biochemical pregnancy. That means only there is the evidence of pregnancy by laboratory tests, by biochemical evidence. So a positive pregnancy test but no ultrasound visualization of pregnancy, only the positive pregnancy test by beta hcg from 0 to 6 weeks of gestation, it will be known as a biochemical pregnancy. Now another terminology what we should be knowing is a miscarriage in which according to ultrasonography there is empty gestational sac. It is around 4 to 10 weeks, or there is a loss of fetus, loss of pregnancy after visualization of the fetal heart between 6 to 12 weeks. It means either the fetus never appeared, the gestational sac was empty, or the fetus was lost after its appearance. The patient had PV bleeding and it passed the fetus. So it is known as the miscarriage with only having a gestational sac. In the second trimester, miscarriages can occur. What is a second trimester miscarriage? After 13 weeks of gestation. 12 weeks also, but according to the lunar months, we calculate them as 13 weeks. So a second trimester miscarriage would be from, then what will be the cutoff line for that would be from the 12 weeks to 24 weeks. Any miscarriage occurring between 12 to 24 weeks would be a second trimester miscarriage. So 15% of all pregnancies visualized on ultrasonography end in pregnancy loss. So what information we get from this fact, that it is not mandatory that if a pregnancy or a healthy pregnancy has appeared earlier on an ultrasound, it would definitely end up, or it will be a confirmation that it would end up in a healthy pregnancy. There are 15% of all pregnancies which have been visualized on ultrasound which get into a pregnancy loss. So what are the types of miscarriages we are going to discuss? Today we are going to discuss about one of these types, spontaneous miscarriage. As the name indicates, it is defined as a spontaneous loss of a pregnancy before or prior to viability. There is a spontaneous loss. Recurrent miscarriage, as the name indicates, loss, recurrent means happening again and again. So loss of 3 or more consecutive pregnancies before the age of viability. This we are going to discuss tomorrow, inshallah, in a next lecture about recurrent miscarriages in detail. Okay, so today our main focus is about the spontaneous miscarriage. It is the spontaneous loss of a pregnancy before the age of viability. So let's see. The earliest sign of pregnancy is what? It is a gestational sac. Always remember, on an ultrasound, the earliest sign of a pregnancy is a gestational sac. You can see this is a gestational sac. And what is this white rim around? This is all the decidua. What is decidua? Lining of the endometrium, which is prepared to receive a gestational sac, which is prepared itself for the uh, to receive the implanting embryo and pregnancy. That is known as decidua. What is a decidua? It is the endometrial lining under the effect of progesterone, which has prepared itself to receive a pregnancy, to be embedded in it. So a gestational sac should have been seen by 4 to 4.5 weeks of gestation. It is intradecidual. So it is inside the decidua. As I have told you, decidua is the endometrial lining. It is known decidua. Otherwise, in a pregnant state, when the endometrial lining has prepared itself under the effect of progesterone to receive the developing pregnancy. surrounded by decidual reaction. This is a decidual reaction. Okay, so it can be used for dating. Always remember, earliest scans. Earliest scans are the most confirmatory for calculation of dates in the later part of pregnancy. A normal gestational sac grows by 1 mm per day. Why we need to know this? That a normal gestational sac grows by 1 mm per day. Think about it. Uh, Definitely, if it would not be growing at this rate, it will give you an evidence of a failing pregnancy, isn't it? If the sac is not growing at, if a sac is not growing, okay, by 1 mm per day, then we would be labeling it as a failing pregnancy. Okay. Now, see, it is a 5 weeks pregnancy in which there is the yolk sac you can see. Okay, you see, this is a gestational sac you can see, and what is this? This is a yolk sac. Always remember, yolk sac is also a sign of a healthy pregnancy. Suppose a lady comes to you, she has previous miscarriage, or she has now conceived after a long period of infertility, or in any case, she is very much concerned about her pregnancy, or she had some evidence of spotting or bleeding, and she wants some confirmation about the health of her pregnancy. And in that case, in the earlier part of pregnancy, if you do an ultrasound scan, you find a gestational sac and along with it a yolk sac, then you are going to help. Oh, and it would be a very good positive sign for that lady, and she would be happy, and you can assure her that a yolk sac has appeared, and most probably this will give you a positive outcome for your pregnancy. So you can see this is an early pregnancy 5 days after a missed period. What has happened? We will discuss about missed period later. Only an empty gestational sac is present. An embryo 2 weeks after a missed period. Okay, it has losses cardiac activity. A fetus at 9 weeks gestation. This is a healthy fetus. It is in the gestational sac, and this is the fetal part. What is this? What is this lining? This is an empty uterus, and this white line is the endometrial lining. This white line is a endometrial lining, and you can see inside the endometrium, inside the endometrium, we are not visualizing any gestational sac, any parts of conception, and these are collapsed. Both of the endometrial lining are adherent to each other. They seem to be joined to each other, and there is nothing inside the uterine cavity. So it is an empty uterus. So this whitish line is always referred to as the endometrial lining. It is the endometrium which get visualized. So, what are the etiological? 90% of the etiology related to spontaneous miscarriage is the chromosomal abnormality. Then, medical or endocrine disorders, followed by the uterine abnormalities according to the incidence, which are less in the general population. We will see what are the uterine abnormalities. As I have discussed before, I also discussed with you when we discussed about the Mullerian duct anomalies, and which I told you about the septate and bicornuate uterus. These were all the uterine abnormalities which can predispose to the spontaneous miscarriages, because they would certainly interfere with implantation and then further growth of the developing pregnancy. Infections can be there, such as torch, drugs or chemicals can be involved. So, miscarriage is common, occurring in 10 to 20% of clinical pregnancies. Also, always remember it is a common entity, and about 10 to 20% of clinical pregnancies they end up in miscarriage, and the risk is increased with the increasing maternal age. So, incidence for the spontaneous miscarriage is about 10 to 20%. among which the first trimester miscarriages are about 20%, and second trimester miscarriages are 1 to 4%. So earlier pregnancy, the risk is more, and as pregnancy progresses, the risk of miscarriage decreases. So again, among the first trimester miscarriages, as I told you, the chromosomal abnormalities have a greater chance and incidence, and among them, the trisomies, triploidies, and monosomies all are the possible etiological factors. Increased maternal age, how can it be an etiological factor? We assume that in the increased maternal age, the quality of the ovum or the follicles produced by the ovary are not so as in the young reproductive age. So therefore, if even the pregnancy happens because of the follicular say so the follicular weaknesses or the follicular not such healthy as in the young reproductive age, there are more risk of miscarriages. Drugs like cocaine abuse or some teratogenic drugs, they are also responsible, uterine abnormalities and infections. So for the second trimester miscarriage, for the second trimester miscarriages, the causes vary. They are not as same as of the first trimester miscarriage. It means if the pregnancy has gone beyond first trimester, it means most probably the chromosomal abnormalities, they have passed by that period. The uterine abnormalities was maybe not that much severe, and now for the most probable cause of second trimester miscarriage, which we consider are the cervical weaknesses as well. Cervical weaknesses as well. Some surgery happened on the cervix, some infection occurred at the lower genital tract. These can lead to cervical weaknesses, release of prostaglandin, uh, release of inflammatory cytokines, and initiation of the process of miscarriage. So, the cervix, there can be cervical injury from surgery, cone biopsy, or large loop excision of the transformation zone, as it happens in the early cervical malignancies. There can be infections with or without ruptured membranes, systemic or local. As I have told you, they can lead to development of the prostaglandins and inflammatory cytokines, then ruptured membranes, and then release of process of miscarriage. Thrombophilias can be there. Thrombophilias, how they can cause? Thrombophilias can lead to small micro thrombi in the placental circulation, which interferes with the placenta circulation and can lead to fetal demise and miscarriages. Uterine abnormalities, as we will see further as well, and the chromosomal abnormalities. Now you see the chromosomal abnormalities in the second trimester miscarriage have come on the bottom of the list. In the first trimester miscarriages, they were at the top. So what investigations we would like to have? Why I wrote ABC? ABC means uh, as soon as you observe the patient, if she is in shock, which can happen in case of an incomplete, as we will see further, incomplete miscarriage, or in case of heavy vaginal bleeding, which happens in miscarriage. If the patient is in case of shock, then the most important first thing to be carried out is the ABC, the airway, breathing, and circulation, which we have to manage. Then the abdominopelvic examination and how the findings will help us to correlate with the type of the miscarriage and just help us further to uh, plan the management. We will see now. Patient may be emotionally distraught if she is in not in active medically disturbed state, but she has known about the miscarriage. She must be emotionally distraught as well as distressed by her physical symptoms. So, what will be our helpful tools? Transabdominal and transvaginal ultrasound. A single ultrasound scan can diagnose a miscarriage if there is a pregnancy within the uterine cavity and certain criteria are met. Hemoglobin, group and safe, or cross match if the patient is severely compromised, we have to assess. Also, to assess the degree of vaginal loss and rhesus status. So what's the clinical presentation? The clinical presentation most common is sign is vaginal bleeding, followed by abdominal pain. Most common is the vaginal bleeding, either accompanied or not accompanied by the lower abdominal pain. So the most common presentation is vaginal bleeding, and if it is accompanied by that pain, we will see further how we would categorize. So clinically, the miscarriages can be classified into different types based on the clinical presentation and the investigation findings. So how you are going to proceed with the history? You are going to ask the patient. The most important thing is when was her last menstrual period. How it would help. If you come to know about her last menstrual period, you would definitely know about exactly the age of gestation. The age of gestation, how the much the pregnancy has, the period of duration of pregnancy has passed on. So from the last menstrual period, we are going to be knowing about the age of gestation. Symptoms. Either the patient is having pain and bleeding. What was the past obstetrical and gynecological history? Either she had previous miscarriages, what were the previous or she had previous miscarriages, how they were managed, she had some evacuations done, she had previous cesarean sections. So these will all further affect our management. So we should be knowing the past obstetrical and gynecological history. Past medical history, sometimes like an uncontrolled diabetic, uncontrolled hypertension, thyroid diseases, they can be further compounding factor in the etiology of the miscarriage. So, to have a precise knowledge about her medical history is very important, as well as the medication she is taking. So, in examination, what you will like to do a general physical examination first with the pulse and the blood pressure. A tachycardia will tell you the patient is having heavy bleeding, or she is anemic, or she had previously bled heavily, or maybe at this time she is bleeding heavily. So tachycardia can lead to give you a good information about the status of the patient. How is her blood pressure? Is the blood pressure dropping? Is she bleeding heavily? So these will be the signs which will make you aware about the condition. Her respiratory rate, how is the amount of pallor, or reduced consciousness, if she's going into shock, you have these signs will be making you aware about the condition. Now, about the local examination, what about the abdomen, fundal height? I would like to show you that in the earlier part of pregnancy, say till the 12 weeks, we are less likely to find any finding on the abdominal examination, because the uterus is still in the pelvic organ. But if it is more than that, in the especially like in the second trimester, and further you will discuss in next our coming lectures about ectopic and molar pregnancy, the abdominal examination will give you a differential diagnosis for these conditions as well. Pelvic masses, maybe there is an accompanying pelvic mass as well, okay, like a fibroid or a ovarian cyst. Intra-abdominal bleed or generalized tenderness, as in the case of ectopic pregnancy, you will be learning about in the next lectures. Location of the pain. On the vaginal examination, the most important is the speculum examination. Look whether the cervix is closed or open. How is the amount of the bleeding? In the presence of the products of conception in the cervix. So these are all the three things which we are going to see. Number one, cervix is open or closed. Number two, amount of bleeding, and either the products of conception are present or not. So the ultrasonography can help us. What about the serum beta HCG? It is main role in the ectopic pregnancy and the molar pregnancy as well. You will be learning about in the upcoming lectures about serum progesterone. The progesterone is a supporting hormone of the pregnancy. If it is less than 20 nanomole in the earlier part of pregnancy, it is depicting a non-viable pregnancy. 20 to 60 nanomole equivocal, and more than 60, it's a viable pregnancy because it is coming from the placental tissue. So it means the pregnancy is growing well, giving an optimum amount of progesterone, and we are ensured about a healthy pregnancy. But these are not used uh, much commonly in the clinical practice. These are not used much commonly in the clinical practice, the serum progesterone levels. So, what about the transabdominal and the transvaginal scan? Week 5, by week 5, there should be a visible gestational sac. A lady is coming by 5 weeks of pregnancy and the ultrasound is not showing you anything, you are worried a bit. By week 6, there should be a visible yolk sac and an embryo. Okay? And by week 7, visible amnion and amniotic tissue should have been seen in a normal, healthy pregnancy. So, what's the differential diagnosis with miscarriage? That is hydatid for mole and ectopic pregnancy. So, this table is very important. It gives you about the types of miscarriage which we are learning here, plus how our clinical and ultrasound findings are help us to diagnose the type with a confirmation. The first important thing is the threatened miscarriage. The type is the threatened miscarriage. What do you mean by the word threatened? There is a threat. The miscarriage has not occurred, there is a threat. So, whenever we think that there is a threat of pregnancy, the ultrasound should be showing us an intrauterine pregnancy. There can be pervaginal bleeding or not, and pain is present. Okay. Speculum examination will show cervical os is closed. Intrauterine healthy pregnancy will be there. Patient can complain of bleeding and pain or only pain. And on the speculum examination, the cervical os is closed. It means the miscarriage is not occurred, the os is closed, the pregnancy is still intact and inside the uterus. But there is only a threat to miscarriage. Then comes inevitable. What the name tells you, it means it is bound to happen. Nothing can stop it. There is still intrauterine pregnancy. There is pervaginal bleeding and pain, which would be much more severity than that of the threatened miscarriage. And the speculum examination will reveal cervical os is open. You might also visualize a gestational sac at the cervical os, or you would see uh, the os is open. Maybe you will not be able to see the pregnancy, but in most cases the os is open and you are able to visualize the cervical os, the gestational sac. And as the os is open, there is definitely now there is no we are not able to revert back the scenario, and the pregnancy is bound to happen to be miscarriage. So in inevitable, now what is the difference? That in the threatened, the cervical os is closed. Intrauterine healthy pregnancy is seen on the ultrasound, but on the other case, in inevitable, there is intrauterine, but the cervical os has opened, and there is it is bound to happen to miscarry. Then comes incomplete. As the name indicates, it means some part of the conception have been passed away by the patient and still some are there. So the ultrasound will show retained products of conception. There is pervaginal bleeding and pain. Speculum will show cervical os open and the products of conception are present in the cervical os and the vagina, and some are still inside the uterus. In a complete miscarriage, as the name indicates, it means on the ultrasound finding there are no retained products of conception, pain and bleeding has resolved, and the speculum shows cervical os is closed. The cervical os was closed also in threatened miscarriage, but in that case, intrauterine healthy pregnancy was present. But in case of complete, although the cervical os is closed, but there are no retained products of conception inside the uterine cavity. Next comes the missed miscarriage. In a missed miscarriage, as the name indicates, earlier there was a healthy pregnancy, or sometimes even the fetal pole didn't even appear, only the gestational sac was there. Or in the later part of pregnancy, there was earlier unhealthy pregnancy, but then the fetal cardiac activity got absent, or the patient had some bleeding, she passed the fetal tissue, and still the sac is remaining. Then it is labeled as missed miscarriage. Fetal pole is present, but with no fetal cardiac activity. Gestational sac is present, but no fetal pole is identified. So both cases, either in the earlier part of pregnancy there will be only a gestational sac, but the fetal pole will fail to appear. In the later part of pregnancy, even if the fetal pole has appeared, but unfortunately it had a fetal demise and the fetal cardiac activity was absent, then it is termed as missed miscarriage. You can see in this picture, this is a threatened miscarriage. Vaginal bleeding occurs, os is closed. Intrauterine healthy pregnancy. Inevitable, the membranes rupture and the cervix dilates. The bleeding is occurring, the cervix is dilated. You can see the cervix is dilated. What is incomplete? Some products of conception have been expelled and some remain. Some products of conception are still inside and some have passed away. This is incomplete miscarriage. This is threatened, you see, intrauterine healthy pregnancy, there can be a subchorionic bleed, but the cervical os is closed. You see, it's closed. In inevitable, still the pregnancy is inside, there is bleeding, but and you see the cervical os is open. Nobody can stop it now. This process cannot be stopped. This this pregnancy is bound to miscarry. It is bound to miscarry. Then comes incomplete miscarriage. Parts of the products of conception are still inside and some have passed away. Missed miscarriage, you can see this is a gestational sac. This is a gestational sac still inside, but no fetal pole, but no fetal tissue. The cervical os is closed. This is inevitable miscarriage. You can see it is a gestational sac. The os is open. The os is open. A blighted ovum. Missed miscarriage is also known as blighted ovum. A gestational sac is present. A distorted yolk sac is also present, but no fetal pole or tissue. Blighted ovum. A collapsed sac. Also in case of missed miscarriage. When the fetal tissue has passed away, in a healthy pregnancy, a gestational sac should be a good round embedded inside the decidual cavity. But in this case, if the sac is collapsed, if it has become distorted, this is also a sign of failing pregnancy. So now coming to the management. The management can be expectant, medical and surgical. Expectant means natural. The patient wants to wait. Okay. Medical, we give some medical treatment, some medication for the patient to miscarry. Like miscarriage has occurred, but she is not able to pass the products of conception, and we give certain uterotonic agents. So the uterus contracts, and the patient is able to expel the products of conception. Surgical approaches, it is depending upon the clinical presentation and the patient choice. When we surgically want to, by vacuum aspiration methods or by surgical tools, we want to evacuate the uterus. So, with the factors which should be considered before starting the management or before making a choice of the different modalities of the management, what is the type of the miscarriage? Like if it is an incomplete miscarriage, definitely you are going to evacuate her surgically. Okay, there are still products of conception. She is bleeding heavily. They are in the cervical os. Definitely you are going to give her a surgical management. Gestation at which miscarriage is diagnosed. Suppose it is diagnosed in the late second trimester, like 18 weeks. It will not be miscarried itself. So you have to give her some medical followed by surgical treatment if needed. What are the facilities available in a hospital? What's the medical history? She's not a cardiac patient. She's not allergic to any uterotonic agent. She's not hypertensive. Depending upon the conditions, we have to. What's the patient's choice? Maybe if your patient is psychologically upset, she doesn't want a long or prolonged management to have free of her misery. And what's the cost? Management, up to 85% of the miscarriages resolve spontaneously within 3 weeks of diagnosis. She would miscarry, she would bleed, and that's it. Diagnosis of complete miscarriage by resolution of symptoms and ultrasound findings. Criteria for patient selection. earlier gestation, singleton pregnancy, and social circumstances. So for the surgical management, the name of the procedure we do is the ENC, evacuation and curettage, or dilatation and curettage. Dilatation of what? Of the cervical os. The os is closed. The products of conception are still inside. Definitely, we need to dilate the cervical os first and then evacuate the uterus. So it is done by either local or general anesthesia. Under cervical ripening should be done with prostaglandins prior to the procedure, but the risks are of bleeding, infection, or retained products or uterine perforation. This is the risk which we are mostly asking you about, that what are the risks of surgical management of the miscarriage. So please don't forget them. Okay. So comparison of vacuum aspiration and dilatation and curettage. Now it is more common about the vacuum aspiration. We use suction evacuation or manual vacuum aspirators, and we take out the products of conception from the uterine cavity. So the characteristics for the vacuum aspiration is it is 98% effective, it has less pain and with fewer minor complications, the complication we discussed before. With dilatation and curettage, the effectiveness is about 99%, increased pain, and there are chances of more bleeding. So, instruments which are used in ENC. This is a dilator, but most commonly the other type of dilator I will show you in the next picture is the Hager's dilator. We will see the one we are using. Sim speculum, this is to retract the posterior vaginal wall. The Ellis forceps or tenaculum, we will see, which is used to help anterior lip of cervix. Ovum forceps, just to collect the products of conception and evacuate. And the curate, to curate the uterine cavity. So these are the Hager dilators of different sizes which are introduced at the level of cervical os to dilate the cervix in case it is closed. Then we use sponge holding forceps or the ovum forceps, as I showed you before, to clean or to just evacuate the products of conception in greater amount if they are present in the cervical os or the vagina, and we can gently hold them in this sponge holding forceps and remove them. The section curette can be used. This is the metallic one, but now common in practice is the plastic one. You see, this is the curette, and behind of this is the cannula, and here we attach the suction tube. So, but now more common is the plastic cannulas. These are the instruments of section evacuation or the dilatation and evacuation. Also, we can use them. We can see this is the sim speculum. Sorry, this is the Costco speculum. It can also be used if you don't have a helper with you, an assistant. This is self-retaining, so that cervix is visualized with you. Here you can collect the products of conception, and this bowl can also be used to have the iodine or some scrubbing agent inside it. This is tenaculum to hold the anterior lip of cervix. These are different curettes. Uh, these are Hager's dilators to dilate, and then after this, the loose parts of the products of conception are removed by the sponge holding forceps and followed by the gentle curettage of the uterine cavity so that any adhering products of conception at the uterine wall are removed. See, this is the procedure of suction curettage. This is the uterine cavity. We are introducing a suction cannula. If the cervical os is closed, it should be earlier ripened with the prostaglandins, dilated with the Hager's dilator as I showed you. Uh, Costco speculum is placed. This is the tenaculum which is holding the anterior lip of cervix, and this is the suction cannula introducing inside the uterine cavity through the cervical os. Again, you see this is a uterus. Here in the vagina we have placed a osteospeculum retracting the posterior and anterior vaginal walls. This tenaculum, you see, it is holding onto the cervical anterior cervical lip. Cannula is introduced inside the through the cervical os into the uterine cavity, and then the miscarried part of the uh, products of conception are removed. So, a speculum is placed in the vagina, a tentaculum is clamped to the lip of the vagina, and suction done. And the suction done. And then followed by the gentle curettage by the curate. Again, dilatation and curettage. Here we are introducing a dilator. This is the dilating the cervical os, and then we are placing the after placing the coscospeculum, and then the evacuation is done. Okay, this is the cervical os which is being dilated by the dilator. Duration of procedure is of the surgical procedure it can be uterine perforation, especially in case if there is a previous evacuation and that part of the uterus has become weakened, and if the cervical the curate has accidentally passed at that point and curettage is done, and this weakened part of the uterine cavity where there is fibrosis, there can be uterine perforation, or there was a previous cesarean section scar and now the patient has a miscarriage, then at the point of the previous cesarean section where the uterine cavity has weakened, there can be a risk of perforation. There is post-operative pelvic infection, cervical trauma can be there, as I told you when we are doing cervical dilatation, and then can be subsequent cervical incompetence, which can lead to a risk of more mid-trimester miscarriages in the later pregnancies. So, coming upon the medical management. In the medical management, we use Utrotronics, most commonly the PGE1 analog, Gemprost or Misoprostol. Misoprostol is in our common practice in Pakistan. So, by the misoprostol, it is cheap and stored at room temperature, and it can be given orally, vaginally, or rectally. And success rate is about 73%. So, with the uterotonic agents, the uterine activity starts, the cervical os dilates, and the products of conception are expelled out. In many cases, it is complete evacuation, but in some of them, when the cervical os is open, then some of the products of conception are still inside the cervical os, we might need a gentle surgical evacuation as well to complete the procedure. The recess status should be always assessed. Don't forget, please, if a patient is RH negative and the partner is RH positive, and you are doing surgical or medical management in the patient in which the patient has pain and bleeding, we need to give always NTD prophylaxis to for the healthy outcome of the next pregnancies. It is required in following circumstances for non-sensitized RHD negative ladies. In case of spontaneous miscarriage, 12 weeks and beyond, we need to give NTD. Miscarriage at any gestation where there has been intervention. So don't forget where there has been intervention, either medical or surgical or spontaneous if bleeding is heavy or repeated. Threatened miscarriage at 12 weeks and beyond, if there were repeated episodes of bleeding also in threatened miscarriage, then NTD should be repeated at 6 weeks interval. If the miscarriage is going on, then there are repeated episodes, then we should be giving the at 6 weeks intervals the repeated dose of NTD. So, what about the counseling? Miscarriage can be a very distressing experience, and the psychological impact is immense. So, sense of bereavement and feelings of depression and anxiety should not be underestimated. So, an emotional support for the lady is of utmost importance in cases of miscarriage. Patients who have suffered miscarriages should be counseled to ensure they understand that most miscarriages are not recurrent. This is very important. The most important helpful point in your counseling is that most miscarriages are non-recurrent and they are not to blame for their loss. Even if the miscarriage and yes, one important thing, all the products of conception should be sent for histology. histopathology. Should be sent for histopathology. This is very important. Even chromosomal analysis should have been done to dig out the cause for the miscarriage. And importantly, the histopathology of the products of conception can also be for us a confirmation between the products of conception that are in a normal pregnancy, or they are of a molar pregnancy, as you will discuss later in the molar pregnancy. So thank you very much for your attention. Yes, students, one important thing is aseptic miscarriage, which I would like to tell you about also. That in case if a has gone through a surgical evacuation and she was anemic, and the important points of hygiene were not considered during her evacuation in far-flung area where we are not able to have good sterilization of the instruments, and then the miscarriage can occur into the endometrial cavity, and this can have later a systemic infection, and this systemic infection can lead to a septic miscarriage. We have seen ladies dying from this critical condition. So always remember that whenever we are embarking upon a surgical evacuation procedure, in case of incomplete or inevitable miscarriage, or to just complete a medical termination, we should always be keeping in mind the sterilization and antibiotic who are um, being treated by the method of surgical evacuation, because septic miscarriage is a very important and which is of great fatality and lethality and morbidity for the child. Even if she survives, if the septic miscarriage becomes a focus or a nidus of infection in the pelvic cavity, it can lead later pelvic abscesses, the duodenal and antibiotic cover whenever we are carrying about a surgical of a lady who has undergone surgical evacuation. Miscarriage is very important. And another important thing which I would like to tell you then it is known as, and it is done for the social or medical grounds, then it is known as abortion. Either the lesion for which the pregnancy will be hazardous for her, or it will worsen the condition, or secondly, if there is a congenital anomalous fetus, then we can use the word abortion. Otherwise, for all other conditions, we are using the word of miscarriage. So, I hope, my dear students, you will must have a good knowledge today for your topic today. Inshallah, see you in the next